I'm Andrew Brons, and I've been a member of the European Parliament for over 4 years. Indeed, we've only got a few months to go before the work comes to an end. We must ask, I think, what's been achieved. Well, of course, our election in 2009 was a boost to British nationalism. It showed that nationalists could indeed be elected. But of course, that boost, that advantage, has been frittered away by quite needless fragmentation. What else have we achieved? Well, very occasionally, and it is very occasionally, we can affect the outcome of a vote. Only last week in my committee in AFCO, I helped, in my small way, the move along the way towards having a single seat of the Parliament, a single location, instead of moving between Strasbourg and Brussels. You might say, well, how does that help? Is it going to get Britain out of the EU? No, it isn't, but it will save taxpayers money, and that's important to taxpayers. One of my other stated aims was to discover what was going on, to use the committees particularly to ask questions and to seek out information. Well, have I succeeded in doing that? Well, there's relatively little new information, but what we have done is to get admissions, confessions if you like, about things that were known but never previously admitted. One good example of that is the admission that the Lisbon Treaty is indeed a reincarnation of the Constitutional Treaty. We knew that, but the government of the day always denied it. So, what else have we achieved? Well, of course, we can use our communications budget. This is an example of one of my newsletters that I give out, or have given out, in various parts of the constituency. This particular one followed a discovery that grooming came under the general definition of human trafficking, if you look at the United Nations definition. I raised this in one of my committees in Libe, and the speaker concerned agreed this did indeed come within human trafficking, so we've told the constituents exactly what we're doing about it. And so in this way, leaflets such as this, we get 43,000 euros a year to spend on communications. Leaflets like this can pass the message throughout the constituency. What else have I achieved? Well, I think I have sown some seeds. What kind of seeds? Well, ideological seeds, and indeed sent some shockwaves through the plenary and indeed through the various committees. I use that word shockwaves quite deliberately and quite cautiously. And I would say that many MEPs, especially from the big groups, have frankly never heard what I say previously. Many of our nationalist colleagues have been browbeaten into using euphemisms and watering down the message because of the legal sanctions they face at home. But I say it as it really is. I explain that immigration is not just about numbers, although numbers do matter, and resources do matter. I tell them it's about the nature of the immigrant. And I say when a third world immigrant arrives at an airport or a port of entry, the immigrant doesn't take off his cultural overcoat and then put on a European or British cultural overcoat and become a sort of new kind of European, a surrogate European. In fact, when immigrants arrive from the third world, providing they arrive in sufficient numbers, and they are arriving in sufficient numbers, they turn parts of Europe into outposts of the third world. They don't like that at all. Indeed, there was one occasion when some of my assistants, researchers, were sitting at the back in a committee, and they looked to the person next to them, who was a liberal of one kind or another, who was literally banging his head into his hands. He'd never heard this sort of thing before. Now, the British Democratic Party has been portrayed as being my party. It isn't. I didn't found it, and I don't lead it now. We have a very able acting chairman in the person of Kevin Scott. I have every confidence in him, but I am a member of the steering committee, among many others, and I play my part, but it's not my party. It's not even our party in the sense of the steering committee. It will eventually become the party of all of its members. Right, we might ask, what does the British Democratic Party, or Brit Dems, have to offer? Well, as I said earlier, we're not talking about a great mass movement. It's very much a potential party in its embryonic stage. Well, its policies have been finely tuned. We have a policy statement here of which I think we can be justly proud. They're always shown to rest on sound ideological principles, something the BNP never demonstrated. What might be underplayed or understated in policies, or simply not spoken about because we don't get around to it, will be calculable from our principles. It also shows our commitment to a democratic system of government, the rule of law, and peaceful international relations. Those are very important things for an electable nationalist party to be able to do. It does, in some ways, break the mould of our previous image. Now, I think we've made the right balance, struck the right balance between ideological soundness and electability, but that's for you to judge. Secondly, our constitution shows that the party will belong to its members and that the leadership will be accountable to those members for their decisions and for their behaviour. But of course, in the end, we must leave the final structure of a replacement nationalist party to be the result of negotiation among different nationalist fragments, and it's not for me to predetermine the outcome of that negotiation. Now, throughout Europe, nationalist votes are surging. They're really going through the roof. In France, of course, in Austria, nationalism of a sort in the Netherlands, and of course even in Greece, though the form of that might not be to everybody's taste and we might not want to endorse it without qualification. But in the United Kingdom, nationalism is fragmented and defeated. Why? Well, it started, of course, with the aftermath of the 2010 general election. The party received quite unnecessary criticism in 2010 following our general election performance. In fact, our vote was slightly, only slightly, I think it was 8 votes, higher than UKIP's in each contested seat. You wouldn't, of course, have thought that if you'd looked at the media. The media spoke of UKIP breakthrough and they spoke about the BNP being defeated, but it wasn't the truth, and our members knew that it wasn't the truth. But of course, secondly, because the BNP leadership acted against that criticism in a quite unnecessary and disproportionate way. He waged war against a membership that was rebellious, although constitutionally rebellious, and in particular he waged war against a rebellious activist segment. Now, what could his motives be? Well, within the limits of his own delusive perceptions, he is probably a genuine nationalist, at least a genuine Griffinite. But he's also a predictable, reactive force that will respond in a way that can easily be predicted. If you like, he's a reliable musical instrument that will produce a predictable tune whenever played by able instrumentalists. He's been played skillfully by those who knew what they were doing. I've always said that breakaway parties do not succeed, almost without exception. And I stand by that, but with certain qualifications. If they try to embark on face-to-face confrontations with the brand leader, if you like, with the parent party, they will almost certainly fail. Though it's interesting to note that the National Party in the 1970s, of which I was not a supporter, won 2 seats in Blackburn before any other nationalist party had done so, and in another council by-election in Lewisham got, I think it was 24-25% of the vote, compared with the NF's 18%, the combined nationalist vote being higher than the winning Labour vote. But of course, if a breakaway party chooses its own ground for advance without direct confrontation, and it can win impressive results, in those circumstances it might gain sufficient credibility eventually to surpass the brand name. The crucial period is 2014, following the May local elections and of course the European elections. The BNP will lose its one remaining seat and will not win any others to compensate it. Now, if an alternative party, even a micro-party, wins impressive results in the local election, it might eventually overtake the corpse of the previous party. Because although our party, the BDP, is really a micro-party, it's a potential party than one that has a great deal of substance at the moment, but for every one of our members and committed supporters, there are probably about 100 waiting in the wings, looking to see what other people do. Now, I hope we'll be a catalyst for nationalist unity, but the shape of that nationalist unity must be in control of nationalists generally. It should not be the creature of self-appointed people like me and my colleagues. Now, we've got to remember, if we don't achieve nationalist unity, it's not just the failure of a party or a series of parties. Our nation will be lost forever. Don't think for a moment, if anybody did think it, that UKIP will somehow be a substitute. UKIP is an establishment safety valve party. It's not designed to save Britain. It's designed to fill a space to make sure that nobody else saves Britain. Thank you.